Well, unfortunately, Latino racism still exists in America. And I don't think it's going anywhere because it's been going on for way too long.
Somebody need to slap the fuck out of whoever told Hispanic people they have the right to say the N-word. Like, what? Like, of course Afro-Latinas could say it, but like, no, not some of y'all other Hispanics. Like, ew, that's so disgusting. They be like, we can say it, Hispanic brother. But the thing is, they only claim to be on our side when it's time to say the N-word. On the regular, they be bashing black people. They be saying, but Black Lives Matter, right? They be being racist. But now, all of a sudden, when it comes to the N-word, yes, we can say it. Yes, brown and black, you shut the fuck up.
Phrases that are rooted in colorism in the Latino community. You should be with a white guy to better the race. Y ese pelo malo, para ser negra sos muy linda.
So growing up in Dykeman, I mean, you go to elementary school, I was probably the only really dark-skinned Dominican dude in my grade throughout from kindergarten through 8th grade, so I stayed in the same school. The jokes were pretty much constant in terms of like blackness, Haitiano, anything that you can imagine. And it was rough to deal with. And, quite frankly, I mean, like you read earlier today, like I hated the idea of being called black. I did not want to identify with black. It was something that I pushed away the same way that we talk about the Dominicans that we're talking about today and how they push it away, right? And I'm 36 years old, and I could probably tell you that I really didn't come to terms with my color until like 8 or 6 years ago. And that's just being real with you,
When you say you didn't come to terms with your color, what do you mean?
I was literally like, anything that I could do that I felt would make me assimilate, anything that I can do that would make me feel different, whether it's like perming your hair.
When it becomes okay for her to call herself La Negra, then she could call herself La Negra. Because if that doesn't change, then we're discriminating against our darker Latinas. So as a solidarity to her darker Latina sisters, I think J-Lo should have said something more like La Morenita, because J-Lo has a big responsibility towards all Latinas, especially her darker Latinas who aren't often represented in a positive light. This whole situation goes back to language and the power of language and the message it sends out, especially during the time you are living in and the context in which things are happening in. Hint, hint, Black Lives Matter. And again, it's not that she doesn't have black blood in her, but it's about the solidarity and the message that she can send, saying that I'm going to call myself a morenita instead of negrita, until a person like Amara La Negra can call herself Amara La Negra. Think about the message she's sending to all our dark young little girls.
Now, black people, you must know that they don't view you the way you view them. You want to unite with them. You think they're your people. They don't see it that way. They view you as their competition for jobs and resources. That's how they view you, as their ops.
Oh, you have to be with a white guy because you have to perfect the race. Oh, your hair, like, qué pelo malo. Ay, para ser una negra eres bastante linda. Oye, pero qué negra fina. That's what it's like.
As an Afro-Latino, I've experienced all forms of racism. I've experienced racism that is very covert and passive.
Cuando uno va a solicitar trabajo, una de las cosas que te miran es el pelo. Te dicen que te tienes que peinar, pero ahora mismo ya estoy peinada.
I've also experienced direct racism, being called racial slurs. I've been told, why do I live in a certain neighborhood?
Cuando te dicen, ¿verdad?, que eres feo por no tener unas características semejantes a las características europeas, a las características blancas.
There's also a problem about colorism. It's people of the same race with different skin colors, and they don't recognize their own privilege.
A lot of white Latinos, they say, oh, how can I be racist? I have black in me. Oh, my great-granddaddy is black. But yes, you can be racist. Just because you use that excuse does not cover up the fact you are a white person and you have privilege over black Latinos.
I definitely have felt the privilege of being white passing. I don't think I realized it when I was a kid. From probably the day that I was born, people commented on que blanquita, que pelo tan lindo, que pelo tan lacio, all of these things about my appearance. And it wasn't until later on that I noticed, wow, this is actually something that is rooted in colorism and something that is rooted in racism, and something that might sound nice to me is actually perpetuating a system that oppresses others.
And my cousins and I would have conversations how if we had kids, how nice it would be if they turned out like our father's side of the family, which is lighter skin with green or blue eyes. And it's embarrassing for me to think of that now, but that is what was taught to us since we were little. And it wasn't until I grew up and I understood just how damaging that kind of thinking is. In order to fix this, in order to have a positive impact, we have to recognize our own racism. We have to recognize that the things that we grew up hearing about European features being superior to African features, that is wrong, and that we have to stop that rhetoric and change it for one that is true, that is positive, and that elevates the Black Latinos among us.
I feel like this just has to be said. Just because you have experienced racism or discrimination does not mean that you are not racist.
What I have learned from listening to our Black brothers and sisters within the Latino community is that if you as a Latino, Latina, Latinx have felt discriminated against at some point, multiply that by 3, 5, 10, and that is what their experience has been like.
Not only that, but the fact that we have been discriminated against ourselves shouldn't be an excuse to not be an ally or to not have these conversations. In fact, it should be the opposite. It should be it puts us in an even more unique position to be able to empathize at a certain level, not at the same magnitude, but at a certain level, and take that empathy and take those experiences to further amplify the voices of Black Latinx brothers and sisters in our communities.
Nuestra rabia no es en vano. Aquí yo llegué porque mis ancestros llegaron esclavos, llegaron metidos en un barco.
Seguimos viendo cómo nosotras, las negras y los negros, no estamos representados en espacios de poder, como el gobierno, como los medios de comunicación y otros espacios que son muy importantes para la dignidad de nosotros como pueblo afrodescendiente.
We should all just stop and help each other out so that these things can stop, these killings and all of these injustices that we go through. Just stop.
The responsibilities that white Latinos have in combating that racism are very clear. One, silence is very loud. Be an advocate. Don't be afraid to be caught in uncomfortable situations, even when those uncomfortable situations confront you at your dinner table.
Para nosotros es importante que ustedes sean nuestros aliados, sean nuestras aliadas, y particularmente porque somos latinos. Y como bien decimos, hay una mezcla de 3 razas. ¿Por qué invalidarnos? ¿Por qué invisibilizarnos? ¿Y por qué negar que existimos y que estamos aquí y que valemos?